Audio article by the Common Constitutionalist entitled Trump's Budget Cuts No Spending. President Trump has released his fiscal 2018 budget proposal, and it seems the world may end because of it, maybe as early as Memorial Day. Republicans and Democrats couldn't wait to get to the nearest microphone or reporter to wail about draconian budget cuts to this or that department. Both parties are nauseatingly hyperbolic. This we expect from the socialist Dems, but some of the Republicans are equally insane. The Huffington Post reports of Lindsey Graham going off the deep end over proposed cuts to the State Department. Quote, Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican, South Carolina, said Tuesday that if fully implemented, President Donald Trump's proposed cuts to the State Department funding would lead to a lot of Benghazi situations, writes the HuffPo. Graham also said the U.S. can't win wars with hard power alone, referring to an approach focused on the heavy use of military force, unquote. What an idiot. How else do you win wars, you weenie? Through diplomacy? The State Department could be dissolved tomorrow, and we'd all be the better for it. They are useless. Now, I would expect this type of aggrandizement from the Democrats, for whom there will never be enough cash, no matter how much is offered up. But the Republicans are supposed to be different, are they not? Well, evidently not. When it comes right down to it, there really is only one difference between Republican and Democrat budgets, and that's the size of the taxpayer soaking. Rush Limbaugh brought up a good point on yesterday's radio program. It's obvious that all the Democrats and a lot of Republicans can't stand Trump and would love nothing more than to see him fail quite spectacularly. If this is the case, and it surely is, Rush asks why the haters don't just support Trump's budget as is. If Trump's budget is as big a loser and will injure as many people as they describe, they could vote to pass it with a publicly announced caveat that I'm voting yes on this president's budget without supporting it. His plan will surely fail, and with its failure, we will finally be rid of President Trump. This budget failure will serve as the beginning of Trump's lame duck swan song. He will know after this failure not to even propose any further legislation. Now, I could continue to quote the multitude of nimrods in the press and on the Hill, but instead I would prefer to ask a question. Seeing as this is my article, I can do so if I wish. What is a budget cut? We think we know, and in the real world we all surely do. But in the land of make-believe, Washington, D.C., most have not a clue. An actual budget cut is not the same as a government baseline budget cut. A normal budget cut is simple. You have a budget. If you have to cut your budget by, say, 5%, that leaves you with 5% less money you can spend. Easy, right? Well, here's a scenario to explain a baseline budget cut I first authored in 2011. A guy has a job at a small business. He works hard and gets noticed by his boss/owner. The boss calls him into his office and says that despite hard times and others being laid off, he deserves a raise, and the owner will make it happen within a few weeks. He is told the raise is likely to be 5%. That night he rushes home to tell his wife, or husband in some states, the good news. She says she's thrilled and that additional 5% will sure come in handy. A few weeks pass and sure enough, he gets that raise. The boss, however, says he can only afford 3%. With all that is going on, the guy is thankful that he received a raise at all, and a 3% increase is still pretty good. He happily goes home and shows his wife his paycheck that includes the increase. Unfortunately, the wife had already calculated and spent the equivalent of the expected 5% increase. She takes one look at his check and with great disappointment exclaims, "What is this? Your boss cut your pay by 2%? And that, folks, is a government baseline budget cut. Let me say, just as a matter of fact, there are no budget cuts in Trump's budget proposal or any federal government baseline budget. There are only cuts in the increases that are already baked in, just like the above scenario. According to InsideGov.com, the federal government's 2016 total outlay equaled $3.54 trillion. President Trump's proposed budget totals $4.1 trillion. In what universe does adding $560 billion to an already bloated budget a cut? Keep this in mind when you see and hear the screeching of money-grubbing politicians. Also bear in mind that the cuts in spending they are crying about are spaced out over 10 years, yet they never mention this. In order to make it sound catastrophic, they allow the viewer or listener to think the cuts are just coming for this year. It's a lie by omission, which is still a dirty lie. They are all lying to us, every last one of them, and worse, they know they are. Thank you for listening.